Hello, everybody. My name is Morten Rignell, and I'm representing Malmö today. Actually, I'm working at the PTA in Skåne, and Skåne is the most southern region in Sweden. Just a thing I thought about for you that are not speaking Swedish, but maybe is in Swedish for the first time or second time or whatever time. It's quite interesting to be here actually today because you learn to know a little about Sweden, because you hear a lot about Swedish cities. And when I was young, and even when my father was young, the way of learning about Sweden and Swedish geography was actually also about mobility. But at that point of time, that was actually a very small guy riding on the back of a goose, traveling through Sweden. A book written by Selma Lagerlöf. But this is maybe the new way to do it, to visit the Kompis meeting and hear about Sweden. Today, 5 cities or 5 regions, but maybe in the future, 105, right? That is the success story of Sweden in mobility, I guess, and hope. Okay, so again, I'm working for the PTA in Skåne, but I will talk about Malmö, which is a city in Skåne. So first of all, to get the position of where it is and what it is, this is Skåne, again the southern part of Sweden. And looking at Skåne, here in this image, westbound is Denmark and Copenhagen, which is the closest part. And then we have the rest of Sweden north of us. And this map here, what it shows is actually how people commute in our region, but also between our region and other parts of, let's say, the surrounding areas. And here we can actually see that Skåne, again here, this part, which is roughly 100 times 100 kilometers, it's actually the west part of Skåne where people live and travel, while the eastern part is not that heavily populated, but in the summertime, then there's a lot of people. Next step then about Malmö. Malmö is then the biggest town in Skåne. We have 3 big towns, that is Malmö, Helsingborg and Lund. And it's quite interesting that people is not only living and working in these cities, they are commuting between the cities. That is very specific and very typical for the Skånish behavior of traveling. So then about Malmö as a city, we have roughly 300 plus thousand inhabitants or people living there. It's a quite young city. So if you take on the population, the mid-age is rather like 35. Third biggest in the city or in Sweden. A lot of different nationalities, 182 in this city. A lot of students. We have a university in Malmö with roughly 24,000 students. And there's a lot of companies, but which is maybe quite important is that we actually have 30 rather big companies that has moved their headquarters to Malmö the latest years. So citizens of Malmö, how do they travel and what does the city say about the future? Well, this is roughly how it looks. So this is what the city of Malmö and their planning looks like when it comes to the citizens. And you can see here, which is important for two different ways of looking at it, I guess, is that public transportation is quite big, which is good. Bicycling is quite good. Malmö is a quite flat town, so it's easy to run the bike. But you can also see that quite many people are using cars. And I would say that Skåne, as a region, it's extremely easy to have a car and to use a car, because we don't have that many traffic jams. So that is why we have this, let's say, different way of looking at in the part and division of how people travel. But in the future, of course, we see a change into more sustainable traveling to and from work, to schools, and during working days and so forth. We heard before about cycle cities. I guess it's popular to be good here. And there is one index. There's a lot of different competitions, I guess. But one of these indexes is actually set by a group, and it's called the Copenhagenize Index for 2017 when it comes to bike-friendly cities. It's a global index, and here in this global index, Malmö was number 5. So also Malmö is a nice town when you ride your bicycle. And where do we come from then? Okay, we are going to talk about not Malmö as a city, because again it's quite big city, but we will talk about a certain part of Malmö. And we call it Western Harbour, eller Västra hamnen in Swedish. It used to be a shipyard area. There was a company called Kockums, and they actually built both ships, and it was real big ships, and submarines. This crane was actually sold 2002 to South Korea. And that was also the start of a change of this geographical area of Malmö. So this is how it looked like, and this is how it looks like today. So it's quite big change since 2002. So what is interesting with this part of Malmö, the Western Harbour, and why do we then, in this competition, mention this area as a very interesting area? Well, we think there are a couple of things that are essential to make this happen. Not happen for a month or 2 months or 3 months, but to make it happen sustainable for the future. To start with, there needs to be a request for the services, the mobility services. And why is that? Well, there are many reasons, but one reason is, of course, that every provider of a mobility solution needs to survive from a commercial perspective. And if you don't have a demand for your services, you will not survive. You can maybe survive for a pilot, because then you get financed from someone else. But we are looking for something that is sustainable. It shall last for many, many, many years. So, what do we have then? We have a request for 24/7, meaning that it's not only in weekdays, it's also in the weekends. It's not only on working hours, it's only over the whole 24 hours. And the reason for that in this area is this. We have 400 companies in the area. We have, as of today, 16,000 employees. In the end, there will be 35,000 in this area in 10 years from now, roughly. We have, as of today, 24,000 students. We have 9,500 residents living in this area. And of course, we have hotels and other events in this area. Number 2, to make things happen and to make it sustainable, is of course the existence of mobility services. I'm representing public transportation, and we are of course in this area, and we are continuously growing our existence in the area, meaning more often with the traffic and more different type of vehicles running there. We have carpool companies, we have car sharing, we have taxi, bike sharing. All these things already exist in this area. They are here. The third thing is, of course, other actors that needs to be there. Again, coming back to the business model. To make this happen and to make it long-lasting, someone has to finance it in the beginning and for the coming years. And there must be a reason for them to finance it in a way. And here are some of these examples. The city of Malmö then, what are they doing as of today? Of course, they can do in the planning, they can do several things around that from a marketing perspective, and they can use it themselves for the employees. But what they also do in Malmö today, and have done for a couple of years, is that they are working very actively with what is called the parking index. And in my way of expressing what it is that whenever you are building a new building, for example, for people to live in, you have a parking index that tells you how many parking places are you supposed to build at the same time. But in Malmö, they are working with a flexible model, which means that if you are, as a constructor or builder, are willing, you can actually build less parking places. And still you will get the okay to build the actual building. But what you have to do is actually finance mobility solutions at the same time. So in that way, they actually finance mobility solutions for the people living or working in that building for a period of 10 years. That is a good step to actually foster people to do a change. And then, of course, we have employers, we have the builders and property owners, and then we have very, very important networks in the city, and specifically working in this area. And these networks, they are working with people both from an employer's perspective, but also from the living perspective, you as a citizen. And they work very hard on mobility issues because they have understood that that is the future for us and for the coming generations. And of course, the university, again, from many different perspectives. In the end, though, when we talk about these kind of things, it's about changing habits. And changing habit is not done overnight. This means that when we talk about these kind of activities that will be done in Western Harbour, whatever happens, it has to be for a long time. It is not a 3-month pilot. It's not a 6-month pilot. It is a pilot as long as it's needed to be a pilot to actually set the correct way of running mobility for the future. So what we say then is, you are very welcome to Malmö and Western Harbour. We are there and we are ready. And hopefully you are too. Thank you.